Welcome to NFL Daily, where we're always on island time. I'm Gregg Rosenthal here in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio, and it's a full house because it's a QB Island Tuesday. Connie Fox, Colleen Wolfe to my right, Steve Wyche, and Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic. How are we doing here for the season finale of America's favorite program?
I've been waiting all season for it.
Okay. You weren't even here for the last episode.
I think we're all just waiting to see how you're going to change the rules on the fly again.
Thank you, Steve, for saying that.
There was a lot of feedback about this.
Okay, I know. I got grief upstairs. I got grief.
It was fun. Why did you get grief?
They were saying,
Hilarious.
because someone was pitching Bryce Young as a potential QB Island resident. I said, yeah, we should absolutely talk about Bryce Young. He's like, well, if you're talking about like right now. And I was like, well, I was thinking it's the last one of the season. I think this should be a document for the entire season. And then multiple people are like, well, you got to make up rules and stick to them. You never stick to the rules or whatever. And people have feelings. I've been getting that grief from Jourdan as well.
Yes, every week we do this. Something new just sort of emerges in terms of whether
That's the fun of it.
just whether it's the parameters of how we're judging these guys changes. First we started with
Whatever you want.
right? And who is defining quarterback play right now? Those are Gregg Rosenthal's
Yeah, I
words.
like that.
Then
one.
it was a 4-game sample size.
It was never
Well,
a 4-game
now-
sample
It also
size.
was, Jourdan, to defend Greg, you can't be hurt and be on here either.
Yeah.
That became something,
That
if
became-
it was a
Oh my
long
God,
time
that's right.
injury.
That's
So I
true.
think for this one, I have always said anyone can interpret it however they want. But I do think this is the last one of the season because some of these quarterbacks can't play anymore. And it'd be good to have a document of the season. And it was never a 4-game sample. It was just,
You've said it on this show.
You have.
what I mean is like
It's a real fluid competition here.
we only are talking in 4-week chunks. So it was like you're adding that new 4-week sample to the overall picture. And
You
you're
have
maybe giving a
literally
little more
used a
weight.
4-week sample size to argue for or against Steve.
We have stuff to get to. We have news. We wanted to do.
Can't hear you. You're breaking up. He has to call you back.
Oh, my mic cut out. Someone cut the cord of my mic all of a sudden.
We
Weird.
wanted to do QB Island for the whole show, but NFL was NFL, and frankly, life is lifing. And I already feel better with the camera turning on and talking to you guys and talking about QB Island than we did a half an hour ago watching these wildfires in the Palisades, not far from us. And so we were hoping to tape this show and get out of here. But yes, Jourdan, like I got in here nice and early to do a lot of prep and stuff today. And it's like I have not been doing any prep, worrying about friends and just what's going on in the school.
Jourdan looks like she needs
schools
a
are
hug right
closed.
now.
Yeah.
I will say, too, like, I learned something really cool about Gregg today. And I genuinely mean this, Gregg. Like, when one person is panicking slightly and, like, clutching their sternum, the other person gets really, really calm. And Gregg was really, really calm.
Oh,
while
yeah.
I was
He's a
having
rock
a moment
in those
earlier,
situations.
being somewhat in the vicinity of these things.
Yes. And I had
And Gregg's-
just gotten off the phone with my wife,
yes.
who I was the one more freaking out and being like, you got the waters in the car and we're ready to like
transfer
get
of
outta here.
calmness. Thank you, Emeka.
Yes.
because she's the reason why that calm transferred to me.
Yes.
So,
So we will talk a little news. We'll get to QB Island, and then we'll get out of here and make sure everyone is safe in West LA. Unfortunately, in Las Vegas, the job status of a lot of people there not safe, including their head coach. Antonio Pierce was fired on Tuesday. When we talked on Monday's show with Ian Rappaport, he made it clear no one really knows what's going on there. Antonio Pierce is acting like he feels like it's safe. He did his press conference as normal, but we learned on Tuesday, Mark Davis, after consulting people around him, including minority owner Tom Brady, decided to make the decision to change coaches. Antonio Pierce, Steve, is out after only one full season. He was the interim in 2023. And Tom Telesco, the general manager, is staying, at least for now.
For now. For now. I mean, look, it's the Raiders. We don't know when, they could have delayed reaction. Like they didn't have to let Antonio Pierce go out there and do that press conference yesterday.
Yeah.
They knew they were doing this. You've heard for weeks that he's likely going to be one and done. Oh, we had the cover of him winning his final few games. Mark Davis is excited about that. They're not going to have the first overall pick, but they don't care about all this stuff. And then let him go. And this again, no surprise. But I mean, what'd you expect? I mean,
Multiple
honestly,
things can be true here, Steve.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what did you expect out of this team? They had no quarterback.
Right.
What skill position guys, other than when they start the season, they had Devontae Adams. Once he was, well, like, who the whole season, what did you expect? It was the same thing in New England. This was a rebuild with no quarterbacks. Were you expecting to make the playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
They competed. Now, I'm not saying there may be other reasons why they wanted to get rid of Antonio Pierce, but this, I'm just going to say it, this coming on the heels of Ran Carthon, the GM of Tennessee, getting fired after 2 years. And I said it the other day on air. Look, the frustration for a lot of minority coaches is they don't get the patience of some other coaches. They don't get that Joe Judge patience, right? And so 2 one and done in coaches with Gerard Mayo and Antonio Pierce, Ran Carthon, Titans get the first overall pick and they blow them out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're going to understand, my phones are blowing up. You're going to understand why a lot of people, black coaches and stuff, saying,
Mm-hmm.
this is, when we tell our kids this, we tell everyone this, you can't make a mistake. They're not as patient with us as they are with others. Again, there may be legitimate reasons right here, but optics are everything, and look at the organizations. It just is what it is. I just want to see how they replace him. It is interesting that Telesco still has his job, that Elliott Wolf still has his job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in that situation, that the guy replacing Ran Carthon was there, still has his job, but they're out. I mean, so again, optics is everything, and my interpretation of those optics say one thing. They may well deserve for these guys to be out, but it is what it is. I know we're starting off QB Island episode on some stuff, but it is what it is.
It was so disrespectful, I thought, to Antonio Pierce for them to wait this long, because everyone knew it was going to happen and everyone was just kind of looking at their phones, calling people, texting people, just waiting for the shoe to drop. And like you said, for him to go out there and do that press conference, it's just like they did him dirty.
Tom Telesco is really good at keeping his job, and as the head coach gets axed after 2 seasons, this was obviously a similar situation. And Steve, to your point, teams who don't know what they want exacerbate systemic issues that we know are real in this league via hiring processes.
Yep.
And these are teams that lack direction when they brought people on board, lack direction when they let them go. And it's a thin coaches market too. There's a couple of strong candidates, we know this, but talking to agents, coaches, agents around the league, they consider this, even with their own clients, they consider this to be a thin coach and GM hiring market. And the ones, it also explains why the ones who are staying patient, who have the luxury of patience, a Joe Shane and a Brian Dable, for example, it explains in part as to why Mara is comfortable staying patient. This is considered to be a thin market.
Yeah, Ian mentioned how owners amongst themselves were talking about how expensive it is to have this dead money of all these staffs, because it's not just the head coach.
True.
You're replacing a lot of people, and is
My
this
God, the
really
Raiders especially.
the smart thing to do? Mark Davis,
The Texans were on that hook for a
Oh my
long
God,
time.
Mark Davis, not afraid of that. I mean, he is paying multiple staffs, and you're so right about not knowing what they want, because like Telesco wasn't even there when Antonio Pierce was hired. 'Cause
Correct.
he was an assistant, and just a small point on Telesco and Elliott Wolf. We'll see if they stay. You always keep the GM
Correct.
in
Same
this
with Trent
situation
Baalke. Yep.
because you just don't know where it's going to go, but they also might end up losing their jobs or at the very least
Correct.
demoted. We just don't know there. Now, Pierce was an interesting case. I do think it was different than Mayo, at least from the outside. I think he had them playing hard and played to the level that they should play. I think Gerard Mayo was uniquely struggling with the front-facing portions of the job,
Yes.
with the media and with his own players, losing respect of both at a level that, like I've said on the show, reminded me a lot of Freddie Kitchens and
Oh, yeah.
reminded me a lot of Nate Hackett. And I think he was he had a uniquely bad year. I think Antonio Pierce has done a good job since he took over on balance.
Right, as the
What
interim
did
as
you
well.
possibly expect?
Look at what he's working with.
Right. I talk about it a lot on this show, actually. Like, I was always impressed watching the Raiders that they were always in these games. They
Yep.
could have won a lot more. They did win four. Like, they won four. Even that Chargers game, they're leading until late in the second quarter. Like, we'll see if the Texans play them that tight on Saturday.
That can be true, and that is true. And it also, unfortunately, is true that they're clearly looking for an improvement of that. There also was a somewhat seismic, although they're going to pretend it's a very small percentage, but a seismic shakeup within that quote-unquote ownership group. They have somebody new who's going to be making decisions. That's Tom Brady, who's going to be having input and insight into the future direction of this franchise, including which quarterback that this team
Correct.
eventually takes.
Mark Davis is going to be listening to him too. I mean,
But I'm sure he's
going to have a
the
lot more
number,
influence.
the number one guy. He's going to be seeking input.
Yeah.
And I really feel for Pierce, but there were distractions with this team, and he had a major distraction. It was a big story in training camp, the bankruptcy filing that Antonio Pierce ultimately was responsible for tens of millions of dollars in a civil judgment that we don't need to go get into deep here, but basically he, by all accounts, got involved in a business that was not on the up and up. Whatever his involvement was, it was a huge distraction for him, and people around that team noted that the difference in when they broke for OTAs and minicamp before that, and when he came back, and it was a little bit of a different Antonio Pierce, a little more muted, and a difficult thing in his life that he's dealing with his family at the same time, and that might have been part of all of this.
And again, that can also be one of the many truths here. I think about assistants like Patrick Graham, who has done a stellar job coordinating that defense year over year and staying the course despite a lot of shakeup in that building and a lot of changes in that building. And he is somebody who should, and in my opinion, deserves to get interviews, at least be talked about in the conversation of head coaches. But you think about all of the assistants, you think about the coordinators, you think about the tenured players on teams such as this. Max Crosby comes to mind,
Right.
Who was very vocal back when they were deciding whether to give Antonio Pierce the full-time tag after being the interim head coach. Max Crosby was very vocal about who he wanted his coach to be. And, going from McDaniels to
Rich Bisaccia.
And Bisaccia, I mean, and he's thriving. Good for him, and then going into.
I mean, it all started with Gruden.
It all started with John Gruden.
I mean, think about how many coaches they've had just since they moved to Vegas.
Yeah.
This is now going to be their 5th head coach that they're looking for.
Yes.
And this was in 2020.
Exactly.
They moved there.
Exactly. And I do think about really strong, very, very highly regarded coaches such as Patrick Graham, who are kind of caught in this maelstrom of.
Right. I know. And they got every former head coach in the league on that staff. And, Marvin Lewis is there.
I need to know.
What are you
I'm
thinking
just
here?
all I'm saying is
I need to know.
it's the Raiders, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk to everyone around the league, like no surprises here.
There's just certain teams that have these systemic issues, and it's like the Jets are one, and so are the Raiders.
I mean, just the impulsive. It's the impulsiveness of leadership. It is, what do you want? That goes back to what you were saying, Jourdan. What is it that you want? Okay, you got excited about the momentum of Antonio Pierce's interim coach, guys smoking cigars, guys playing their tails off. Okay, what are you going to give them to help build your team with?
Here's what you want. You want whatever Tom Brady. You want Tom Brady involved on changing your direction. And one quick thing on Patrick Graham. He actually is interviewing for the head coaching job in Jacksonville, they announced. And he's also, at least, was asked to interview for the defensive coordinator job in Cincinnati.
Good.
So
he'd be a.
he does have.
Yeah.
Cincinnati. He'd be a great.
It'd be
He
good.
does
They
have
got to get some
interviews.
players there.
Now, I wonder if there's going to be a battle for Mike Vrabel now between the
Probably
Raiders
exactly what Mike Vrabel wants.
and the
1,000%.
Patriots.
1,000%.
Tom Brady's old teammate, Brady versus Kraft.
A bidding war.
And that brings us to the Ran Carthon news, because Mike Vrabel ultimately lost a power struggle with Ran Carthon just a year ago. Ownership favored, Vrabel and Carthon did not see eye to eye, and they ultimately kept Ran Carthon going into 2024, hired Brian Callahan, fired Mike Vrabel, and then Ran Carthon doesn't even get to do 2 full drafts there. And it's crazy to think how one transaction has changed an entire franchise. John Robinson, the former GM, trades AJ Brown to the Eagles. Just weeks later, he's fired. Then they bring in Ran Carthon. He gets in a power struggle with Vrabel. Vrabel gets fired. And now here's Ran Carthon. And this is just this is how bad teams stay bad.
And this is the ripple effect that gives Howie Roseman's number 2, Alec Hallaby, the job in Tennessee. What if that's the full circle moment here? I mean, my goodness, the Howie Roseman sitting on his throne, watching the worlds that he's created across the league and half the front offices in this damn league.
But if you're Brian Callahan now, you're like, well, I'm on thin ice here. I know they're saying I'm coming back, but we have a bad team that needs a quarterback. Yes, you have the first overall pick, but there's a lot of things going on there right now. This is one of those things where I guarantee ownership's like, we got a new stadium going up. We got to get butts in the seats. We got to re-energize something. I mean, trust me, that came into play with this decision. So with this number 1 pick, let's really figure this out. And they said, well, we don't trust Ran with the number 1 pick because he drafted Will Levis and pushed for him. Right? And how'd that work out? Well, again,
it's never one, and we all know this. It's never one person just pushing for it. Comes out conveniently this time of year, but it is never just one person pushing for the one quarterback. There are let's talk. We're going to talk about him later in the show. The Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud situation.
Correct.
It was never just one person who was like this, regardless of anyone else. Like this is what there were multiple reviews, multiple perspectives.
They did have a brutal free agency period.
They did.
The trade for
And I think
L'Jarius
that's a
Sneed.
factor.
It just made it a lot of the stuff, and you would ask anyone, like, what is their plan? L'Jarius Sneed, Ridley, going out and get Tony Pollard. Some of them worked, but it was not a good
Chidobe
matchup.
Awuzie. Like, they spent a lot of money.
Spent a lot of money to build a roster, not a team. And there's a lot of organizations like that. They've got a nice roster, but not a good team.
And I wonder if they thought that they had a quarterback. Like, I wonder if they maybe thought that Will Levis would be a little bit better
100%
because
they
of the
did.
way that he ended the season last year. So in their minds, maybe they were kind of moving forward and would have places for all of these guys, and it would be a more cohesive unit. I always find it interesting when teams don't just do a clean sweep of the head coach and the GM. Bring them in together, make sure they get along, make sure everyone is just like cool, vibing all right, because then there's just always some residual weirdness, and you never know who. It's such an incestuous league. So it's like you never know who has beef with who.
Yeah, and they're looking at outliers when they think that they're going to be. This is like goes back to you never want to be two things. You never want to not know who you are, and you never want to be the team that goes, I can fix him, or I can make him better.
Oh my God, yeah.
I can be an outlier. And they're looking at these outliers. For example, the Les Snead Sean McVay partnership. They did not come in together to that team. Les Snead was already there and was a part of the hiring committee for Sean McVay. They look at these successful outliers that are not the mean throughout this league.
Correct.
And they think we're going to be that team. We can do that.
Or they don't even really look at it at all, and they're just making it up as they go along. And
Kind of like quarterback island.
there is this there is this assumption that executives have this plan when they're just freestyling.
Well,
and football is not necessarily their business. Maybe they made their money in a smart way in a different business and don't know this business. Or more likely, their parents made money and then got into football, which they didn't necessarily know either, and then they inherited it. And it's like, why do we expect like greatness out of that?
It's look, let's go to Jacksonville. Shad Khan, who made his own money, right? He's one of the great true American stories of working with pulling yourself up from the bootstraps, right? He keeps Trent Baalke, who is hired Jim Tomsula in San Francisco, Chip Kelly in San Francisco, Urban Meyer, Doug Peterson. Now this dude is on his third coaching hire situation in 5 years with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why would Ben Johnson want to go there? Unless he can say, you know what, if I'm coming, I'm bringing Ray Agnew or John Dorsey from Detroit.
Yeah.
Like Detroit's got the best personnel staff in the NFL, right? Why wouldn't Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson go to some place where they can somehow get these guys in the building?
That would make sense. I don't understand the Trent Baalke situation, because before Doug Peterson was hired, it was like they couldn't find anyone that was interested in even taking the job because nobody wanted to work with Trent Baalke, it sounded like.
I think he gave it away in his press conference. I went back and I listened
to
his Zoom
Shad.
press conference. I think he gave it away because Shad said, and I'm paraphrasing, something to the effect of, we've got 85 other people that we've built this through. What he's actually saying, and I know that quote was parsed and reparsed and all of that on various shows, but what he's really saying is we've built an alphabet, and then we've started to build books out of the alphabet of what our scouting and pro personnel department is, and all of the support staff and all of the language of this ecosystem that's in place, and he doesn't want to start over, right or wrong. And I think he's wrong in keeping him, but right or wrong, that to me is what he's saying. He does not want to start from ground zero again after the entire ecosystem of that team behind the scenes, everything but the on-field product he believes is in place. because of all of the little layers that go into actually building a franchise with in terms of the league cycle of what
Shortcuts are not going to get you.
But at the same time, a general manager is not going to come in and completely blow up your
Right.
ecosystem unless it's a Bill Belichick.
You have to like dismantle it though. You're going to put in your own system. You're going to put your own language, and even the scouting system and the scouting.
Sure, but you could easily
metrics that
remove
we
Trent Baalke and it'd be fine. But not if
Yes.
Trent Baalke is in the ear of the owner explaining that everything's going to fall apart and they're going to have to change everything.
I'm not saying they should have kept him. I'm just
Right.
saying that to me that is what he seems to believe. Exactly what you just said, Greg.
Yeah.
But
I'm not
we-
saying
we-
it's right.
we've
I'm
seen
just
this-
saying.
But again, this is why I think the Giants held on to Joe Shane. Because everyone says Brian Daboll is a good coach, but if we split them up, then what GM is going to want to come here or vice versa?
That makes sense. I actually think keeping them both was better
They
than
have patience.
splitting it
I
up.
applaud that.
I agree, but here's like Chicago. Everyone says that's the best situation to go to, but they're keeping Ryan Poles
Said
as a
that
general
last
manager.
year too for Caleb.
Right. But they're saying, again, why would you necessarily want to go there when it's clear that Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren, the team president, have a very strong relationship? Why would Ben Johnson want to go there? Yeah, go there for the quarterback, but don't you want to go there with someone who who has your back? Again, with a Ray Agnew, with a John Dorsey, someone on that personnel staff in Detroit.
Especially as a first-time head coach.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I think it's possible. You hear things about Ben Johnson and what he's interested in, like kind of how his workflow goes and all of that. I think it is possible you do have the unique candidate
Yes.
who perhaps is less interested in having full control over the entire system and more so controlling that particular
Sure.
element of it and being the mad scientist and kind of cooking in that way.
Well, he interviewed with the Patriots. Go give it to go get it done, Patriots. Surprise everyone. Don't go back to
He
the
might
old,
be the backup if Vrabel ends up in
Don't go
Vegas.
back to the
Oh
old
my
stuff.
God.
They also interviewed Pep Hamilton, who was a quarterback
guy?
coach of Joe Milton, was also here at NFL Network as a head coach. You hate to think it, but that feels like
Yep.
he's just
Go-
wasting his time
Go ahead
there.
and say it.
A sham interview.
Yeah. Because Byron left. They did two of them one day.
Byron Leftwich as well.
And just for those who don't know, if you interview two minority candidates from outside the organization, you meet all criteria for the Rooney Rule.
Right.
I guarantee Mike Vrabel will be in there by the end of the week. or
Now
by
they
the end of the week.
they
Not
could
even
be
caring about
candidates.
optics either.
Yeah.
And to
Right.
follow up, real interviews take longer than half a day.
And they could be candidates potentially for the offensive staff. Maybe they're trying to do
Yeah.
homework there. Who really knows? But we
Who
have
could say?
we have a new opening, and I don't think we're all totally done here. I think there are situations around the league like we don't know about Dallas.
Yeah, we're never done right this quickly.
I've got my eye on New Orleans, where locally they are assuming that Mickey Loomis is going to be hiring this head coach, and I just keep an eye on that. I think
Oh, what do you know?
I don't know anything, but I'm just saying.
That's what people who know something say.
Based,
Yeah.
based on the fact,
Don't ever
all I
play
need to
poker.
know is that they fired the head coach against Mickey Loomis's wishes, and then he released a statement essentially announcing it was against his wishes. And I know he's been there a long time, but maybe you can move him along to co-executive vice president of Benson Enterprises, but it has nothing to do with making football decisions with the Saints. We'll see. I don't know.
It's a very
It's
parochial
possible.
organization.
Putting out to
It
pasture.
really, really is. I mean, because they run the Pelicans as well.
Right. You can give him a promotion. You can give him more
Not
money,
happening.
but not involved.
No,
with
he's
the
very
Saints.
involved.
We'll see.
Is he
we'll
into
see.
basketball? Have we
Let's
got-
take a quick break. We got to get to QB Island, but that was a great conversation between three really smart people and myself. Back on Quarterback Island in a minute.
I was about to crush you. As soon as you stop talking.
She was so red. She was-
12 of the NFL's finest quarterbacks have left the comfort of their stadiums and luxury suites for the adventure of a lifetime. These gridiron heroes are used to leading their teams on the field, but can they outplay, outlast, and outthrow each other in the ultimate survival challenge?
You leave everything you have for the guy beside you. We find a way to win the game no matter what. Let's go, baby.
The stakes are high and the competition is fierce. Only one can claim the title of the ultimate survivor. Who will rise to the top and who will be sacked?
They wrote me off. I ain't right back, though. That's the problem. I ain't right back. Let's go.
This is Quarterback Island.
Oh, will they be writing back to Gino today? We'll have to find out. One of the big questions we are going to answer on the season finale of QB Island. And thanks, as always, to the great pipes of Randy Chavez, who
Yeah.
is now producing podcasts over at Sinclair, I believe. And
Now doing voiceover work probably too.
he
He should be.
Yeah.
He sounds so good.
I remember the first day I heard that intro, and I don't think I've had like that much joy.
Oh no.
I mean, no, it was a lot of joy. It's fine. I'm fine.
We do need to give Jourdan a hug, as it turns out.
It was just
How about
a
when
lot
your
of
dog
joy.
got stuck behind the couch this week?
Oh yeah,
That's
so
big time joy.
he doesn't know how to back up.
Oh
So he
no.
has
What?
to try to turn.
Stop.
So he turned around. He got into like a little half croissant, and he got stuck.
That's got to be better even
It's
than
so
the
good.
Randy.
Can you
I
imagine?
texted Greg a play-by-play. I was like,
Now-
"You'll not believe what's happening in my house right now."
Every time I think of this story and your dog, I'm gonna think of something going beep beep.
I know, that's exactly what I was
Trying to
thinking about.
back up like, oh, the poor guy will never know the joy.
Bless
All right.
his little heart.
QB Island.
Oh
If
boy.
you haven't listened
Watch
all
out,
season,
you're gonna hit Colleen in the
Oh, it's gonna happen.
We
I'm just
started-
like inches away from my face.
in training camp, and we voted on 12 quarterbacks who would represent the position right now. Who's the best? Who symbolically means the most? We started the season, and we voted quarterbacks off and onto the island
Yep.
throughout the course of the season. Last time around, we lowered the number to 10.
Who did?
So I did.
Yes, you did.
The committee did before the show, the executive
You're the committee.
producing committee. Jordan's involved, not in that particular decision. But 10 quarterbacks remained at the end of last quarterback island, and 10 will remain
All right.
into the off.
Okay.
10 is
Okay,
a
cool. We
nice
have a solid rule.
Did you put an asterisk?
round
next to
number.
vote
You
the
know
word
why he
voted?
did that?
No.
You know why he did
No.
that? Yes, you did.
No.
You
We
did
talked about it. Jordan was involved in this one. 10 feels good. I like it as a document. Who are the 10 quarterbacks that defined this regular season? So we are looking back, but you can choose
I
to
like
vote guys on and off however you want. I think
Okay.
it's fair to wait the end of the season more if you want, but at least how I'm operating, I'm looking at the season as a whole as the most important factor. But yes, that nebulous defining the position or who's really been it this year in terms of mattering, like that can
The
play a part too.
intangibles.
And you
that
know
can
what?
play a
I
part
even
too.
wrote it down because as a capital J journalist, it's important that we are on the record with the phrase, which 10 quarterbacks defined this regular season, quote, end quote, Gregg Rosenthal.
Yeah,
Okay, got it?
but I'm saying more. I'm saying my number one thing is who is the best ultimately. But that is part of the equation, maybe to split some hairs.
I love
with
this.
guys.
I love this.
Okay,
I thought you were
so
gonna shrink it. Okay.
last time we left 10 guys on. And I'm just gonna read their names quickly, and then I'm gonna suggest. I actually think we have a lot of guys that are safe. Yes, you can watch on YouTube. We've got the graphic up. It was Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, in no particular order other than alphabetical. Jaden Daniels, Sam Darnold, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love, Patrick Mahomes, and Geno Smith.
The next quarterback island, we will rank them in order of talent.
Ooh.
that makes me feel sweaty.
Yeah, see,
Dicey right there, Wolfie.
Jordan did come up with Quarterback Island. She is
Thanks,
the
Greg.
originator.
Salute. Salute.
And
then
part of it
and
was-
then I watched it spiral out of all of my control.
Part of it was you didn't want to rank guys. You just wanted to
Hopefully got naming
talk about
rights.
them. But ultimately making 10, it is ranking.
I like that.
At least
Glad you kept it
around
at 10.
9 to 10. Now, we could talk about some of these guys a little bit, although we spent a lot of time already talking coaches. I actually think there are some tiers here, but I personally think 7 quarterbacks are going to be on without a lot of discussion. And so I'm just going to read them, and if you guys disagree at the end of it, you can disagree with whatever you want, and then we could vote if you want. I think that the top 4, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes have been the top 4 really throughout.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the way Jared Goff has played all season and the way Justin Herbert put himself on this island halfway through the season and has finished the season make them really obvious that we're not even going to debate about it. Are we?
I do
I'm
not
with you
have
on
a
that
debate
too.
point on this. And on Herbert, just as a reminder to the listeners, he was not initially on the island because he was injured.
Yeah.
And so once he was able to be on the island, we put him on the island, and he more than earned his.
Although,
Yes.
it basically was halfway through the season. He had just come back and then he got hurt again. And
Yeah.
so it took a little bit.
And their offense opened up a little
But
bit
he
more.
is dealing right
I
now.
can't wait to talk about him on
He
the
is
preview show
dealing
tomorrow
right now,
because,
man.
my God, he's right there with those top guys. And so is Goff. This is the best Goff has ever played. Number 7, and I did say this in the order that I would put him, And I think safe is Jaden Daniels. I would put him like
I would too.
tier below those 6 guys. And yet, in terms of consistency, in terms of numbers, in terms of defining the position, I think he's pretty safe. Am I right or am I wrong?
I think he is. The only thing I would potentially flag is that he's a rookie. We haven't seen a huge sample size. I know we're just going by the season, though. And I was thinking about last year with C.J. Stroud. He would have absolutely been on the island, and this year, not. So it's like, I don't know.
But it's just this season.
He's been on the island.
Oh, I know. I know.
CJ lasted half
I just have
the year.
trust issues here,
Okay.
so.
Or you're an NFC East fan who
Right.
didn't
A lot of
really.
things to talk
Get
about
outta
after this
here.
show, Colleen.
I know.
No, I agree because
He stays.
of the rookie class too. He also defines the rookie class, which was punctuated by a lot of really talented rookies,
Yes.
including
Mhm.
the emergence of Bo Nix here in the
Yes.
second half of the season. I think that Jaden Daniels is the face of this rookie class of quarterbacks, each which had a very unique and important story, but certainly between numbers, between the entire franchise, just having life to it. And like, he was like a human, like saging the place, like he was brilliant for them.
That was an organization that got out of its systemic problems. Like
Correct.
it was like a full clean out of everything and
Yep.
everyone.
Yes.
And now look at what they have done.
You know what that reminds me of? That Cliff Kingsbury had, according to the people in Las Vegas, in agreement with the Raiders, at least a verbal one,
Right.
to be their offensive
Oh my God,
coordinator.
that's
And he
right.
bailed to go to Washington.
It would
What
not
a-
have gone as well as it had.
What a good move that was for him.
Here's the Jaden Daniels thing as well. Okay, let's suppose they said, let's rest the rookie and play the veteran Marcus Mariota. Are we talking about Terry McLaurin the way we're talking about him? Are we talking about Zach Ertz the way we're talking about him? Look at what this guy has done for other people. The way he's played, the way he sees the game.
Lord, I've seen what you've done for others.
Correct.
This is like an all-time rookie season.
Although to
He-
be fair to Cliff, I was running these numbers I was talking about of like looking at all the stats, and I at first sorted by at least 50 dropbacks. Do you know who leads the NFL in completion percentage, EPA per dropback, completion percentage, over expected, and success rate among all quarterbacks in the NFL with at least
Jaden?
50 dropbacks? No, but it's on his team.
It's true.
Marcus Mariota, who's had
with at
exactly
least
50 dropbacks.
I was like, what is he at, 51?
How do I put the Noah?
Yeah.
I'm just
You
saying,
know what?
I'm not putting
Get
him
a
on
life,
the list,
bro.
but let's give Marcus Mariota some credit.
We love
for
Marcus.
playing,
Especially on
Yeah.
the
playing
island
3
thing.
good quarters
Yeah.
or whatever it was.
Oh my God.
He really did. I was just like, I was shocked. And I was like, okay, I need to make this like 250
Bro, you need to
dropbacks.
get a hobby, man. This is too intense. If you're going deep to exactly 50 attempts to justify your metric.
That's where I started. And I was like, this is funny.
When was
Mariota.
the last time you
By the
played
way-
tennis?
Right.
I played with John
No
Gonzalez
way. When?
on New Year's Day morning. We started off the year
Oh.
healthy.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, we were in Playa Vista.
Fair. Fine. I'll allow it.
It was nice.
By the way, the real answer to most of those statistics is Joe Burrow. So
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean if you raise it up, Jaden Daniels is right near the top of
Yes.
a lot of those. Okay, so we got 7. There were 3 more guys on the list that I didn't name: Jordan Love, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. I think one way we could start this is talk about those guys and potentially vote them or on or off or hold it if you guys wanted to. We could always put them back on if in the end we think they are worthy. Do you wanna get going? I'm gonna throw out someone first that I think is gonna be the easiest. I don't
All
care.
right.
I
right.
actually think this
That's
won't be
clear.
that hard. I don't. I want to hear what you think, Colleen, about
God,
Jordan
okay.
Love.
Okay. I think that he should be off the island. He was one of the guys that I outlined here. I had 2 guys that I wanted off the island. I have 3 guys that I wanted in. So the math doesn't really math there. But I just feel like with him, he doesn't. I feel like there are guys that have more of a case to be on the island than he does. Guys like, I mean, Jalen Hurts is not on this island. Are like, what are we doing here?
Yep.
I know Matthew Stafford is like a bit of
oh,
a
I ripped him off.
situation on this show.
We'll get to all that.
Okay.
But just talking whether we want to vote Love off. Yes, you think he doesn't have as good a case.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think his ceiling is among the highest of all or most of the quarterbacks that we're about to put on the island. That's his ceiling. I think his floor can be a bit lower. And it certainly has showed, and it's plummeted some of his more advanced metrics. He's 13th in total EPA, true. But he's also 37th in EPA per dropback, which would, if taken by itself, which we never do, but if that was taken by itself, would not even have him in the qualifying conversation. 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Again, not terrible, but if you look at, say, for example, a Jared Goff, who's thrown 12 interceptions, he's also thrown 37 touchdowns. And yes, Jourdan Love missed some time. So we have to keep that included in the conversation. But in my opinion, while his ceiling is astoundingly high, and in fact higher than a lot of these guys that we're talking about on the island today, I do think he has some floors this year that have hurt his case.
Yeah, let's think how he ended the season. I mean, he didn't make it through the game. He didn't play well against the Vikings. It was too little too late in that game, ultimately. I do think the end of the season, those games are more important. And so to me, they weigh a little heavier. And ultimately, it reminded me of a guy who is great, but even when we put him on, like, I felt good about it, and he played well the next game against the Lions. And yet, since then, it's just been like he's not at that top level yet.
Here's why to me, he's off.
Okay.
What are we talking about the Packers' offensive identity is right now?
It's the run game.
It is Josh Jacobs in the run game. That's it. End of argument.
Yeah.
Let's vote. I have a big no.
I gotta know.
He gone.
He gone.
Okay.
Sorry, Jordan. We got one spot open. Well, that's
Okay.
exciting. Do the Geno thing now? Why not? What do we say? I don't even want to start on the Geno.
I mean, as much as we've been like Geno, I mean, I'm teetering with Geno.
Now we could
Right.
we
Like,
could
he's
go
a guy-
through
he's a
all
guy
the
who-
maybes and include him on
Correct.
it and just decide at the
Okay.
very end if we want. But let's at least talk about him now.
Really quick before we get there, and I'm sorry, I did this really quickly on my computer, and forgive me, I was a little distracted earlier before the show, but I didn't have the right filter on. Jourdan Love is in fact 16th in EPA per dropback among quarterbacks qualifying with 50-plus dropbacks this season. I did not want to let Jourdan Love
Okay.
float away from the island with that low of a
Okay,
rating on
that's
him,
good.
but
Oh,
still
man.
outside the top
Still not
10.
as good as Marcus Mariota.
No.
Still outside the top. Still outside the top. But just wanted to fact check that real quick. Anyway, continue, Greg. What were you saying about Geno?
I'll reserve the boot for Geno, even though I'm very much leaning that way. He's been erratic over the past few games, but he has delivered. His OC got sacked. It's never a good sign for a quarterback on Quarterback Island. But I'm just saying I'm going to keep him on the fence depending on the options to vote people
Yeah.
on the island.
The case for him, and it's really difficult, is to try to take him away from the situation that he was in, to just evaluate the position. In terms of defining the position, I think that's a ding for him this
Yes,
year.
Yes.
because
agreed.
The team didn't make it there.
I mean, also the
But their offense had-
interceptions, like he's
But-
But their offense had no identity. Like, what were they?
no, and it just seems like his teams, they just always have a ceiling. Like it's always like 9 wins.
He
8
also
wins.
threw so much that he's going to be high in the
Right.
volume stats. Like he's second in yards, second in touchdowns,
Right.
and high in interception. For what it's worth, at
Third most
PFF,
in the NFL.
his turnover-worthy play percentage was quite low, which would indicate like he was very good at turnover-worthy play percentage, which would indicate A, he's not fumbling a lot like a Baker who leads the league in it, or Darnold who's close, and then B, his interceptable balls happen to be caught more at a higher rate.
So the part of the issue, and I am 1,000,000% anti factoring wins into quarterback play. I am against that. Wins are not a quarterback stat. They're a coaching stat, but they're not a quarterback stat. However, there are only a couple of quarterbacks who did not make the playoffs in a year in which Quarterback Island is defining quarterback play for the season that we are going to talk about. One of them is a no-brainer yes on the island in Joe Burrow.
That's exactly who I was thinking about
Right.
with
And
Geno.
Geno is not in the playoffs, and a lot of that's not his fault. So Seahawks fans, like, I see you, I hear you. Like, please know, I think that he's played some absolutely elite quarterback this year and over the past couple of years. But if we are talking about the end island,
Yes.
right, and defining the position this year, the one quarterback in terms of whether or not they're in the playoffs that you would then comp him to is Joe Burrow.
Yeah, and Geno Smith is not going to be a Joe Burrow where, of course, Joe Burrow doesn't have the wins to back it up, but Joe Burrow has this quality about him where he can pull everyone up around him, and his effort, the way that he plays, it's just different. It feels like it should be game-changing, even though the results were not there. But he has this like it factor that I don't think Geno has.
I
No
will
question.
say-
They're in different tiers. I don't
And
get
Geno's got
if we're
dudes
gonna get
now.
into wins though, like to me that's an argument of like a Sam Darnold who racks up 14
Only one former
over Geno.
Jet.
It's not an argument of that
I'm
Baker
on the fence
Mayfield's
with
in
Sam,
it.
by
right.
the way. I'm on the
And
fence
I'm
with
on the
Sam.
fence with Baker and Sam.
I'm not on the fence with Baker.
Not
Um,
either.
Baker's team won 10 games and had one of the easiest schedules in the league. So to me, he gets no extra credit over Geno that they won this. For me personally, that he won the same amount of games as Geno.
I'm not comparing him to Baker.
No, I know.
Even
I'm just
with
saying,
all
like,
of the injuries
I
that
kind
they
of
had?
am, because to me, those two might be my last spot, like trying to decide between
Another
those two.
10-win quarterback we're going to talk about later that we haven't mentioned.
Yeah, who would that be?
Oh, I will get there.
Okay, let me make the case, because I'm the one that obviously is gonna have to make it here for Geno. In pure dropbacks, and so that's taking away RPOs, play action passes, in screens. Second in the entire NFL in success rate. When pressured, third in the entire NFL when pressured. Top 5 in completion percentage over expected. Obviously very high in the counting stats like yards and touchdowns and completion percentage in general. Top 10 in the league when blitzed. So those are stats that people in the league like to run because it tries to remove some of the situation around them. Some more stats.
And they can be paired with the value and ability of your receivers, which is the argument that people made last year about Brock Purdy when he was really high in success rate and some of those numbers. Those are not just the quarterback in a vacuum.
No question. And it's weird because the difference between him and Purdy is like the Seahawks offense wasn't good. It was a below average offense. One of the reasons why 31st in the league in starting field position, 26th in pass block win rate, one of the worst running teams in the league, almost never used play actions, and one of the worst screen teams in the league. And so he sort of was on an island, and that's just the case for it, that he's that high, first, second, third in success rate in these categories where you take it out. And so that's my case, and I'll shut up.
So the listeners have the full context of his advanced metrics, right? Also finished the season ranking 28th in total EPA and 25th in EPA per dropback. And again, you can correlate some of that with the absolute crater of an offensive system and scheme that team was, and a crater of an offensive line. Now, I am not holding that stuff against Geno. In the 2 times that I saw him play live this year, and then I watch his tape every week, and then 2 times I saw him play live, I thought he was outstanding. My favorite play of the year for him was when his pocket was collapsing last week, and he did a spin move to avoid 2 interior defensive linemen who were about to bring him down, and then stepped through the pocket and then completed the pass downfield. I think he is outstanding. I am a big Geno Smith fan. If we're talking about quarterback island in the context of defining the position this year, then I'm really on the fence with him, and it'll really have to depend on how other guys shake out.
Okay, I was ready to just give up the ghost, and then.
Well, you know what?
floating.
You know what's interesting, Greg, is
floating.
I'm not willing to let my biases over how the last episode unfolded
Oh, that's very
interfere,
nice of you.
or my biases. In
He would be
general.
getting discussed here today, anyways.
There's a lot of baggage here, I think, with
Some
these
things happen,
shows.
Colleen. Some things happen.
We're taking it easy. on
It's
Greg
funny
right
though
now, man.
because he is such an interesting case that obviously that they ultimately were a little disappointed. And yeah, that game last week, even though it was against the backups, it just reminded me of, like, my God, it's just pure quarterbacking level. Do I ultimately believe he's in the top 10 right now? He is on the edge. It's close, but I am leaning yes ultimately for a lot of those stats. Let's talk about the other guys. Let's talk about Darnold right now, because I think going into last week, it would have been safe to say, Colleen, he might have got mentioned in that little top of the show with the first 7.
Mm-hmm.
He had one of the worst games. I don't think this is an opinion that any good quarterback had all season in Week 18 in the biggest moment. Like
That's fair.
You had one of the maybe the worst week any quarterback had in the entire league last week. For that to happen on Sunday Night Football and happen in a similar way to ways he's lost before, where it just seemed like he froze on some level
Got the yips.
and could not.
He was
just,
so off with some of those throws.
and mentally kind of couldn't get through it, couldn't get over it. He got stuck. It's a tough last final statement for QB Island and puts him on the edge at least for me, and because of that performance.
But also it's one game, and
It was
like
the one game.
It was.
We're talking about
and
defining
everyone's
position
watching.
Season-long deal.
It's a huge. I mean, that was a playoff game. That was essentially like a play-in game. It felt like, but. For Sam Darnold, I mean, you don't look at the resume for all of the other games of the season, how he performed. He was great in almost every single one, I would say. And then this game, It was bad. This was like a little bit of the old Sam Darnold.
It was the trapdoor we've been waiting for all season that he didn't step on.
He kind of did with the Jacksonville game, but his defense
bailed him.
let
But his
him over
defense
and
bailed
no
him
one
this
watched
game.
that game.
They got him 2 picks deep in Lions
Yeah.
territory, and that's when he floundered. They had to kick field goals, and that's why it's like, ugh, is he going to do this in the playoffs? Right? We've got that question. But if we're talking about the island, comparing him to guys like Geno, like no, Sam Darnold is on this island. I think he's got a nice place there under a nice palm tree hanging out near Joey B.
What do you think?
Jordan's not
I'm on the
feeling it.
fence with Sam
Oh,
because,
God.
like,
Interesting.
for most of the season, his floor was so high, right? Which I know it's like I might as well put it tattooed across my forehead at this point. The entire point was to raise Sam Darnold's floor, and that happened. And then it even lifted his ceiling even higher. I do think that, like, if we're going to go over his resume for the entire season, I've seen a quarterback who had earned his place, at least for the first, like the middle section of shows that we did before we pulled him, had earned his place. Let's not forget, we did pull him.
Yeah.
Because he had that two-week stretch
What are you talking
Although
about?
right
I will
before we
say-
did one where he
Yeah.
really was struggling.
Which is why the argument for quarterback wins has been discussed previously.
Which
We
but-
see where you're going.
But also, some of that pulling him off the island happened in a very less than ideal
Doesn't matter
way
now,
in
anyways.
accordance
He-
to the show rules. and
he's on
discussion of
the
show.
island coming into week 15 when we last did it,
Yes,
and actually was playing great
playing great.
Yeah.
the couple weeks before this game. So to Colleen's point, it really was one game, but it was a big game, and it was bad enough that then you start looking at the rest of it, because the rest of the statistical profile in terms of grades and turnover worthy play percentage and fumbles and all that, it is kind of on the border. Him,
not
Baker,
great,
and Geno
yeah.
actually end up in the same area in a lot of things when you just take away even the subjectivity.
The red zone passing from Sam, when you need him to be clutch, right? When you need him to define the position and really embody all of the things that he's overcome and embody that player who Kevin O'Connell believes he is and has poured that belief in him all season. And that was like the third worst red zone passing performance of the season by any quarterback. And it's tough. It anchors him down where his floor has not sunk him all season, in my opinion. But
Agreed.
it anchors him down a little bit. But I'm not willing to overlook the full.
Yeah,
body.
and especially because I was saying, for me personally, I'm just talking for myself. When I'm saying it's a document for the season, that's a point in his favor.
yeah,
I really
he
think.
Are we gonna vote? Are we gonna vote?
defines-
Dude, should we hold off now?
Why?
Well, I'd like to hold off because I want to talk about Baker Mayfield.
Let's take a
okay.
quick break, and we're gonna come back, and we're gonna talk about Baker and maybe a little Matthew Stafford, maybe little Bryce Young. Who knows? We'll at least talk about it. Just bring them up before we make our final vote of the season. Back on QB Island.
It's my mood ring.
We're making a list. We checked it twice during the break.
like 5 times maybe. I don't know.
7 members of QB Island right now. 3 spots somewhat
There's
open.
one.
But Geno and Darnold remain on the island. We have not voted for it. But one is just wide open out there. So I thought I would use this point in the show to ask, does anyone want to full-throatedly, nominate someone that we're going to vote on to join the final QB Island of the season? Whoever says the name first, we'll talk about him. Come on.
I know you have one.
Bo Nix.
Oh!
No one's thinking about Bo. We talk about defining the position. Look at the team he started off with. Oh, defense. Look what he's done with them. He's elevated Cortland Sutton. He's elevated his tight ends. He's elevated the Denver Broncos. They are in the playoffs. 7 games with 100-plus passer rating, including the final 3. 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 3,700-plus passing yards, a bunch of rushing yards. Elevate. We talk about floors. We talk about ceilings. Talk about making people better. Who was thinking about the Denver Broncos as a playoff team before the season?
No one.
No.
I am not capturing this in a moment.
Not even the Denver Broncos.
No.
Sean Payton probably was.
Mm.
This dude, when we're talking about some of these other players, if we do not talk about Bo Nix in this conversation, we would be making a mistake. Now, do you put him in, over?
There's no Jalen Hurts in here.
Okay, we'll talk him next then. He's next in line.
I will say this because you're right
Yeah.
about all of this, Steve. At the same time, I don't know that I feel great about putting more than one rookie on quarterback island.
I would if he had earned it, but I don't think Bo Nix has earned it. I welcome differing opinions, even when they're wrong, like this Bo Nix one, because it's like a participation trophy.
What are you talking about?
It's a participation
He's
trophy.
playing great football, Greg.
He's playing great, and he gets to be mentioned. And
Is Gino taking the Broncos to the playoffs?
if I squint,
Get 'em.
they had the same amount of wins. Actually, how many wins did the Broncos?
Oh, that's a
have?
participation argument right there.
Wait.
Okay. If you're arguing that he's playing quarterback at a higher level, that's where I'm just going to disagree. We can use whatever metrics
Whatever criteria we want.
But I think when you are looking at elevation, you are looking at a system that has elevated Bo Nix. And that's what good coaching does. And he's been great as a rookie. But when I watch him on a week-to-week basis, I don't see him elevating the players around him. I think the last few weeks of the season really pointed that out. The Chargers game where for a half he's struggling. The Colts game where he struggled for the whole game. The Bengals game I think was a very typical game for him where it's a couple big-time throws and him not coming through ultimately. 6.7 yards per attempt. He has been amazing to be a league average quarterback, but that's where I would put him. I think it's cool that we're talking about him and it makes sense, but I don't think he gets that close to the top 10.
If you put him on the Seahawks, are they any better or worse?
They're worse, for sure.
I think that where he should get a bump in Steve's
I think they're like
argument-
5 and 12.
I think where he should get a bump in
God.
Steve's argument and a bump in his favor is he is really playing over the entirety of the year, not just pieces of it, but over the entirety of the year and including his ascension and improvement. You could put him in the argument as the second best rookie quarterback this season.
I agree.
And that's where I think he gets a bump because for a rookie, first of all, to deal with Sean Payton as a rookie, I mean, we saw it earlier in the season.
He was like he was sassy with him.
He was
too.
he was the right person for that head coach, I think. And you can see when it works, it really, really works. And I think to accomplish and ascend and play the way that he has, where you can see improvement over time, I think that gives him a point in your favor.
Absolutely, but just on a throw-to-throw basis, he is not being asked to do what these other quarterbacks are being asked to do. And his next big win in the NFL will be his first one. Give me the quality win that the Broncos had. To me, they do not define the season that they won 10 games against losing teams and the Chiefs backups. He had his chance in overtime to end the Bengals season, and he missed 2 wide open throws. He had a chance to make the playoffs.
How'd they get to overtime?
He made some plays.
He absolutely changed the ceiling of this team. I mean, a rookie quarterback coming in, the expectations are
He's
so
hugging his
low.
cards.
He's
for
been-
those not watching,
He's
Greg
been
is
great, but
trailing his
top
cards.
10 is too far for me.
I
Ultimately,
just want to have that
I guess
discussion because top 10,
That's a good one,
nearing.
Steve.
I
Here's-
lean on quarterback excellence, and like to me, a Jalen Hurts would be ahead of him. A Baker would
And
be ahead
a
of him.
Matthew
To me,
Stafford would be
Gino
ahead of him.
A
I'm not
Stafford.
putting
all those
Matthew
guys
on.
would be ahead. So that's to me not even Kyler. That one's close.
I think
but
Bo
I think
wins over that argument over Kyler.
Kyler
Okay,
did a lot of
so
good things.
So if we took off the 3, like you're saying,
well, I can't.
Okay,
I'm
then
not,
in your that's why we can vote, and you could vote a yes and try to get him
Have it
through.
on
But
the
I'm
record.
voting no. We are
Okay.
officially voting. Colleen
No.
Wolfe.
No.
Steve Wyche is a yes.
I'm not using the riptide on Bo Nix.
And for new
That's
listeners,
exactly what
and,
somebody who is about to
and
be
myself,
retired
Not
would
doing
say.
it.
the Riptide, you can.
I don't know that I want you explaining this. I'll explain this. Yeah, because you misused it last time. It is called the Riptide, as in a dangerous wave that washes you away from quarterback island. And the Riptide can be used one time all season by you can only use it once. And it is to literally take off a quarterback of your choosing with no argument at the end of the vote. And then you have to rediscuss anyone who didn't make it on that you would put on instead.
So you pull him out to sea.
Yes.
It's a rip
and
tire.
Greg used it.
unfortunately, no one's used
Got to
it.
swim
on.
parallel.
I used it the wrong way.
The complete
No
opposite.
one really knew.
The complete opposite way in which it was intended. Yes.
It's
the
a good.
ripcord.
It's a good lesson
riptide.
for all the kids out there
It's a rip off.
that people in charge. They're just making it up as they go along. Let's talk Jalen Hurts, your guy.
Jalen Hurts, I mean, yes, he has a concussion right now, and I don't know what these like the changing of the goalpost here with the rules. I don't know if he's even allowed to come on to Quarterback Island. I feel like was I gone when he was voted off Quarterback Island, or had he not made it onto Quarterback Island?
He amazingly has not been.
That's
on Quarterback Island
crazy.
this
That
entire
is
season.
disrespectful. Like, he has a top 5 passer rating. The way that he can, I mean, yes, the tush push definitely, adds in,
Pad the
pads
stats.
some numbers
Yeah.
for him, but top 5 in rushing touchdowns too. He's had a really good season, and of course he's surrounded by so much talent, but he's a really talented quarterback. And when you look at the names on here, I would argue that he is absolutely in the top 10, if not maybe the top 8.
If we talk about the Eagles offense, who do we talk first?
Saquon. He's flashy though.
And who do we
He's
talk
new.
next? I would talk AJ Brown next, because to me, AJ Brown,
Cor-
if I'm
I
doing
would
all
too.
pro
He's
and it's
been-
3
he is-
receivers,
he has
I'm
been the
actually putting
difference
AJ
maker.
Brown on my top
Okay,
3.
but
He's
Jalen
been the
Hurts is
difference
putting
maker.
it right where AJ Brown can only catch it.
So is Kenny Pickett.
That's tough.
That was
I
like-
don't want.
It's a low shot. But what I'm saying is, if you're talking
So
AJ,
is Tanner McKee.
but what I'm
Oh my God, I'm
but,
leaving.
But what I'm saying is, again, I love Jalen. But when we're talking about the Eagles offense and defining the position, is Jalen the first guy who comes to mind?
I think Jalen had some ups and downs in his overall
And
level.
I am holding
It's-
the original rule
Of
about
play.
the injury.
Now,
He's missed the past
here's
3
the
games
thing.
in protocol.
It's so tough to say that because Saquon Barkley is such a unique player in this entire league. If you talked about like the entire division, even,
That
you
is
would
the
talk about
reason-
Jaden Daniels, you would talk about Saquon.
But
Like-
that's the exact reason why Matthew Stafford is still being debated about as a potential Hall of Famer, because he had Megatron. He had such a unique player to get the ball to, and it unfortunately it's a beautiful thing to watch, but it knocks the quarterback.
Well, we haven't talked about it enough on this show because it hasn't really been germane, but Jalen Hurts' rushing value has helped Saquon Barkley quite a bit and helps his case.
Also,
He is one of the most valuable runners in the league, not just because of the tush push, because he is efficient. When he runs, he gets first downs
he's a
at an
threat.
incredibly high rate. And that's a value that Geno isn't giving as much, that Baker Mayfield isn't giving as much, although he's giving a lot.
last
Yeah.
He's
Oh my
certainly
God.
they're giving more than Darnold when we're comparing it to guys in this area. His rushing value is good for him. If he had stayed healthy,
If he's
I think-
healthy, yeah.
I think
was
you'd have an
passing,
argument.
he was passing the ball among the best in the league right around the middle of the season as well. We talked about it on this
Right.
show, and that was it's unfortunate. Like the rule we established, the Herbert rule that we established at the beginning of the season, was that if you're hurt, you cannot be on the island. And that was the Jordan Love situation as well early on in the year, and that was the Justin Herbert situation. So, but I do
Let's see
think
if he passed concussion protocol.
Okay.
Hold on.
as of today.
He's still-
here's
he's
the
still
thing,
in the
though. I think he
protocol.
needed to finish strong, and he does take a lot of sacks. He'd have a higher sack percentage than almost anyone on this list, and that's really important. Those are they're big-time negative plays. Other than Baker, Darnold's in that mix, but Hurts is even higher. Hurts only attempted 361 passes.
Yeah.
It's like 1947.
That's Brock Purdy-ish.
It's
Well,
like,
he's
really
not
is.
calling the plays.
I get it, but that matters to me. I'm gonna
Kellen
vote.
Moore.
I'm voting no.
I'm voting.
Although I like
if
it.
he,
You guys
if
know
he were
where I
healthy,
stand with this.
if he were healthy, I'd probably have him on. But he's missed 3 games.
He would have been borderline and
last
had a
3
good
weeks.
chance if he was
Yeah.
healthy.
And
Justice for Jalen.
on that point, in terms of finishing the season strong versus not finishing the season strong, let's talk about mother effing Bryce Young.
Okay.
Yes, because, and Greg, I know how much you early on in Quarterback Island like to use PFF in your arguments. He is the 6th highest passing grade quarterback since week 8, according to PFF. That was when he came back from
That tracks.
his benching. He has 100+ passer rating in his last 3 games, 15 touchdowns in his last 9 games, and he's playing like a top 10 quarterback or top 11 quarterback post week 8. Now, I'm not necessarily arguing for him to be on the island. I have someone else who I'd really like to put on there who we'll talk about in a minute. But I think he is one of the defining stories of this NFL season.
100%.
And I love it for him. I've watched this clip 100 million times probably over the last couple of days. That easy go-ahead throw, that touchdown pass where he didn't just give us the Steph Curry after he shoots the 3 and then turns his back and does the touchdown sign. He also gave us Jim Halpert face. He found the camera and looked directly at the camera. I freaking
He
love
gets
it.
no points for me on that because Lamar did it the day before.
I just love, but
Lamar
I love
just did that.
Come on.
But you
Lamar
can have-
just did
You
that.
can have Lamar's confidence if you play like Lamar Jackson every single week. He's
Ever
an
since I
MVP.
came
But
after
Bryce
Steve's
Young is
lovely
playing-
Bo Nix, he just isn't the same.
No.
now. He
Here's
just said a
here's
dagger.
here's
No,
why.
that was at me,
No,
not
but
at you.
here's why I love what Bryce has done. Because what did we talk about the last 2 years for him? He's got no weapons. Yet he is carving teams up. What he did
And
to
he's
the Falcons
running.
the other day, he's running the ball. He's very decisive. Adam Thielen's had this resurgence. He has elevated other players. So I love the fact that you're bringing
Yes,
Bryce
and
into
you know
this.
what I think is beautiful too. Like as they said, when we saw this at Alabama too, as decisive as he was as a passer, that sort of point guard mentality, distribute the ball, make the cool throws, and do it from a variety of different arm angles. He's also really decisive as a runner.
Yes.
A couple of those gains that he made over the last couple of weeks, you can see him looking for the creases. You can see him looking for how the play is going to unfold layer by layer and making the correct decision. He's playing like with a clear mind and with confidence. And I give a lot of credit to Dave Canales and Brad Idzik, who's working with him a lot in Carolina. And I just think that this is one of the defining stories. Even if we don't put him on the island, I wanted to say it. I think he is one of the defining stories of 2024 at quarterback.
Just think about the conversations that we were having when he was benched.
Yeah, he's done.
It was like, where is he going to go from here? Is he even going to land
Could they
anywhere
even
at
get
all?
a 6th round conditional?
Yeah, I would love to go back and actually listen to some of the things that we talked about.
Sure.
Because now seeing what he was able to do and come back, no one saw this coming.
You know what I
Including the
love?
Panthers,
And
who
you know what I love?
didn't want to play him ever again.
Right.
And I
If
love-
Andy Dalton had
Doesn't
played
get hurt.
great,
I brought this up at the time too. One of the things that's going to make the Panthers keep him is understanding and hearing that knowledge that 15 other teams wanted to trade for him. Teams were calling. Teams wanted to be I can fix him. They wanted to be that team, and they knew what he was capable of.
I love it for him, especially after last year. Just all the love that went to C.J. Stroud, and he deserved it. But Bryce Young sat there and just got crushed, and now
Literally
at least
and-
I know.
And
and I said coming
love
into this
for him.
season, can he have Alex Smith's trajectory? Alex Smith, one of the worst rookie quarterbacks of all time, a #1 overall pick. Not a ton of physical gifts other than his speed, obviously, that just jump off the page. And then the second season, North Turner comes in there and he just stabilizes him where he's okay and ends up having a great career. And now I'm thinking about it, and it's I could see Bryce Young having Alex Smith's career. I could see it being better. I could see it being worse too. I don't know yet, but it's a real conversation now when people are saying, well, would you take Bryce or CJ Stroud now? I think that's a fair question to ask. Would you take Bryce or Trevor Lawrence right now? I want to see more, but he really did play at that high a level where I actually think I would take Bryce over Trevor Lawrence because I've seen more of Trevor.
If we were still at 12, and this is going to be Quarterback Island 2025 season entering in, if we were still at 12, I would be voting him on to the island.
That'd be
right
great.
now.
And you know what? You know what else helps? Is when the Atlanta Falcons blitz you only 15% after you get ranked.
Yeah, that helps.
60% the week before.
That helped. His matchup, he also did face a very easy schedule, so that evened out some of the receivers. But I love, he always makes the right miss.
He was
when he misses, it's
fantastic.
in the exact right spot, and he can
All props
never.
to that kid, man.
I'm voting
That
no.
we are even
but love
talking
it.
about him
Yeah,
to vote on
all
him.
props
I
to him,
love.
though.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a nice no.
It's
Let's-
it's a no, but next year.
Let's do Baker. I feel like Baker is the headliner we're saving
absolutely.
for
Yes.
the
Absolutely.
right now. Let's talk Baker. Does anyone want to make the case for him?
I want Baker on Quarterback Island.
I do too.
And we could go through a bunch of his notable statistics where he's top 5 quarterback in a lot of different areas. He's second in completions. Obviously, that has to do with some of the volume at which he's throwing. Third in yards, another thing with volume. Second in touchdowns. And fourth, however, in a much more situational and holistic metric, fourth in EPA. And I think that the thing that I see with Baker, regardless, week over week over week through this entire season, and an argument that we cannot make this season about some quarterbacks, is that this team took on his personality.
Mhm.
This team took on his personality, and there's a will to win. There's a matchup savviness when you carry yourself in this way into the postseason where no team wants to play you because you are an amoeba. You're able to counter all kinds of different things because you had to do it earlier in the season. There's a mental toughness, and there's a gumption because to get Mike Evans that last pass, you're probably 9 out of 10 times not doing that. You're kneeling it out, right? The game was not over. Now, I don't think the Saints were going to make a play on that, but, the game
they tried.
The game was not
Rizzy
over.
was so pissed. They had a coverage that would have double teamed him, and they blew the coverage.
Thank God.
They either
Thank
let Mike
God.
Evans get it, which is my theory. Like the players were like,
No, that dude was not loving the fact that
And-
he was the guy who was on the back.
Oh no.
And I will say that takes some mettle. And Baker Mayfield has shown us that all season. I think if we're talking about this being such a cool year for quarterbacks, showing us what they're really made of after kind of getting tossed around in a few places and kicked to the curb in a few places. But not only that, to be that guy and then be the defining player, other than Mike Evans, but the defining player on this team. Yes, Liam Cohen is great, but you're not talking about Sam and Kevin O'Connell the way that you're talking about Baker Mayfield. You're talking about Kevin O'Connell, right? Liam and Baker really make a great pair together in that way because Baker is just going to go all out and just try to, he's going to try to win on a 28-yard, he's trying to score on a 28-yard carry.
This is such a scrappy team because of him and the injuries that they dealt with. So many other quarterbacks and teams, it would be like, oh, well, they lost their guys and had to deal with all of this adversity, but it didn't matter. He still got them wins. And then he did all of this with a rookie quarterback or a rookie running back in Bucky Irving, and then a new offensive coordinator in Liam Cohen. So he had all of these different things and still was able to deliver.
That Chris Godwin injury, how emotional that was.
Oh.
Right.
If you don't have that it factor, that defining thing that makes a team rally around you and not sync with a situation. We see it with the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, you lose the
Right.
yeah.
Right.
I think context is fair for him on what helped him, but I think you made a beautiful
he has
argument.
like one of the best offensive lines in football. Let's
He
be
wasn't
fair.
pressured a lot, and he handles pressure poorly in terms of taking negative plays. He has the most fumbles in the league. He has the most fumbles plus sacks plus interceptions in the league. So he takes a lot of negative plays, and he doesn't get pressured very often, and yet he takes all those sacks. Those are the negatives. But everything that you said about who he is,
To be fair,
and adding his scrambling ability lately, that game to me on Sunday defines him. Because going into the fourth quarter,
Wasn't great.
he was under
and
four.
he'll be good for an interception
He
a
was
game.
under 4 yards per attempt passing with an interception, and then it's what you said, that force of will to scramble and be patient, and he really has gotten a lot better being patient in the pocket and hitting those third and longs and getting Jalen McMillan, and then the quality of the throws. He has the big time throws that you want to see out of a guy on quarterback islands.
Well, one of the things that I love about quarterbacks covering this league for a long time is I'm going to use an NBA analogy that Jerry West told me about 15 years ago.
Ooh, flex, love
Okay,
it.
right. 98% of the NBA can get you 25 points per game, right? But there's only 10 guys who can get you 6 in the final 2 minutes. And there's only 1 or 2 who can get you 6 in the final minute. Baker's one of them dudes. He's got the killer in him, right? He's got the Joe Burrow in him. You know who else has it is Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels got that killer in him,
Yes.
right? But I love the fact that Baker, no matter what happens ahead of him, that's why I like Ben Roethlisberger.
You know
Big
who
Ben.
else has that in him?
Who's that?
The leader in fourth quarter comebacks over the last few years.
You
Geno
just,
Smith.
Geno Smith.
I was,
There you go.
If you look at him
this
late
is
in
what
the
I was
game.
talking about that Geno doesn't have.
But I'm just saying. The
I'm just
killer-
saying, but I agree. I agree.
And the fact, and Colleen made the great point. Last year, we were giving Baker props because of Dave Canales.
Yeah.
Now he's got Liam Cohen. Baker's the dude. He's
Yeah.
the one. He's the common denominator. With
Oh,
I
by the way,
love
who
what
came
Liam
to Los
Cohen's done, though.
Angeles?
He's great.
They
Who
should
came
be
to Los
talking about
Angeles?
him like
he will
like
be.
Kevin
I can't
O'Connell.
hear
He's
anyone.
going to be a head coaching job.
And who
he's going to get a
came,
head coaching
and who
job.
came to Los Angeles when that season was sunk and the head coach was just like MIA mentally and was a sunbeam into that building in terms of what he was able to do 2 days after. And yeah, he got coached up, Zach Robinson and Liam Cohen. It's part of the reason they have good jobs where they're at now. But that's Baker Mayfield.
He landed in
And-
that building and
Wow.
won that Thursday night
Yeah.
football
He
game.
was not on QB Island all
Was
season
Liam-
long.
And I
was
will
Liam
not
on that
stand
staff?
for it.
Let's
was,
vote.
Was Liam on that staff
Yeah.
when Baker
Yep,
came?
that's
Okay.
Liam and Zach Robinson.
You know
All
what?
Guys.
Enough.
Steve Weiss.
Yeah.
Steve
Let's
Weiss
go.
gives him a. Let's hear it.
Yes. Baker's on.
I am a yes.
There we
Sorry.
go.
Florida
Sorry,
man.
Eric. He won.
Florida man's on the island.
I don't care that it was the fourth quarter of the 18th week that actually won me over. That was those 2 drives he had to go take the lead.
Mm-hmm.
were
Just-
maybe the two best
Just
drives I
stop.
saw all season by
Stop.
anyone,
And do
and
you
in the
know-
biggest spot. So like, okay, I've got to. If I'm thinking about him and Darnold, for instance, yeah, you left me with that final answer. I'm giving it.
Two last things.
What's
I've
our
been
math
waiting
right
on
now?
this. Two last things I've been waiting
He's
on
on.
for so long. So, Greg, to take the negative plays that he does, and he does, that's fair. To take those and still rank where he ranks in EPA, I think is significant.
They
in
don't
terms
count if you don't lose fumbles. They don't count it against you, which is one of his traits. Is he hadn't happened to lose a lot.
Sure, but he takes
Yeah.
a lot of negative plays
Yeah.
regardless. And then the other thing is that throw to Jalen McMillan.
Oh my God.
After, but here's
Holy.
why this is Baker's got it, and we know this, right? But like that happened after no person, and you can argue this till the cows come home, whatever. But about whether it should be a penalty or what. But no person on the planet was as mortified as Jalen McMillan, hands on his helmet, just distraught over incurring that celebration penalty that he did. And Baker goes right back to him, and just that absolute slice of a throw. That was
That was a
brilliant.
QB. That's the first ever throw that put someone on QB Island. It's amazing. Although the next drive was
That's why
pretty-
Anthony Richardson's not on, right?
Right, the next drive was
Talk
great.
about that for
We
all
haven't
you.
Throw of
talked.
the year.
We haven't talked Stafford yet.
What's our math though? Okay,
Yeah, where are we?
Okay,
10
we
of
are
10?
to eight. 8 people have officially been voted on. Yes, Gino and Darnold are on from
the
before,
fence.
so we have a full island at the moment.
Okay.
But we haven't voted officially on Gino or Darnold this time. And if we, wanted to bring up someone else to replace them or vote on them, we could. I think we should at least mention Stafford,
Yeah.
who, it's funny, right after last week when we voted him off, he had his.
He ripped it up.
He ripped it up against
I wanted
the Bills.
To die.
He
I
hurt.
mean, it was
He
really
killed
fun
him.
to
It's
watch.
It's like I gotta get back to that island.
It was a delight to watch. That level of quarterback
wait,
play on both
wait.
In the
sides.
3
Wait.
games after that,
Yes.
they combined to score the same amount of points and kind of showed where they've been in too much of the season.
Sidebar.
Yes.
Right after that show, where was it that the Rams landed in Stafford? The Rams Instagram site or whatever, social
Yeah.
media
Oh, I
site.
know.
It says Matthew listens to podcast, but
No,
his
no.
warm up jacket had his wife's podcast on there.
But my stomach, because I get notifications.
was more.
So I get notifications, and all I saw was the caption. I didn't see what he was wearing. He was wearing the Kelly
Yeah.
Stafford's podcast label or whatever.
Amazing.
But all I saw was that it was a picture, and then it said Matthew QB1 listens to podcasts, and I went, oh God,
He knows.
Like
He knows
I
about
wanted
the
to-
island,
Jordan
and he's not on it
volunteered-
anymore.
Jordan
I will
volunteered
say
him
we
on.
had a lovely conversation the very next week after about all of the things he does pre-snap in order to make that offense sing, even though it's not singing very lovely tunes lately. Jimmy Garoppolo played really well in Week 18.
Oh, don't even.
Which hurts. Which hurts us.
Just
I
Stating
think
facts.
Stafford, it's funny because I think Stafford had a.
I think he defines the position in
He had a-
2024. But
I
it's
actually-
hard for me to vote him on.
I don't anymore.
No, the last era. I think he defines like the last of the old gunslinger guys. Like,
Yeah, the
that's what I
island needs
mean.
some leadership,
He's-
some veteran leadership. Everyone else is under 30, I think,
He's
on
been-
this list.
who's
he's-
gonna buy the booze?
yeah.
Maybe it's because of their schedule, but I feel like
I
the
got
Rams.
Joey B.
The Rams haven't been in the spotlight, and that's kind of why people haven't noticed that. Yeah, the 3 games since they combined to score 44 points. He had under 6 yards per attempt in all 3 of those
And-
games. He had under 200 yards passing in all 3 of those, and he makes great throws. But when I think Rams offense, I don't think Matthew Stafford anymore. I think one of the most efficient wide receiver seasons
Nakua.
of all time, Puka Nakua. And if I had to go second, I'd probably go with a very efficient running
Yeah.
attack too. So and that's okay. That
And-
happens to older.
And I
players.
will
Yeah.
say too, like Greg, those 3 games he threw, I want to say 9 near interceptions that either bounced off someone's chest or was tipped or something. That was hard to watch because he didn't look like himself. And for some parts of the season, they've needed him to be the transcendent, like gunslinger, like darkly chaotic, soul snatching Matthew Stafford that got them into the Super Bowl and then won them that Super Bowl with some of the gutsiness of the throws. And at times this season he has been that and more, and other times he has been far, far below that,
Yeah.
and that's why it's hard for me to.
So among all the people we've talked about today, him, Darnold, and Baker actually have the highest turnover-worthy play percentage. But to me, they've provided more consistent highs to balance those out. I'm voting no on Stafford.
Yeah.
Steve,
I
you,
gotta know.
it's an audio medium.
Nope.
No.
I'm
Not-
voting no, and you're welcome, Rams fans, because he's about to put up 56
Yeah.
now that I voted.
Oh,
him
he
off.
could.
Just like he did last time. 44.
You're saying that he ain't put up 56 on the
No.
Okay, Matthew Stafford will not make it. We just went down a 10-minute wormhole where Jourdan did the thing that someone does in every show. Usually it's me. I'm happy it's Jourdan this time, that she had realized she messed up her math. Colleen was like, "Can I get out of here?" What did you call it? The Bermuda Triangle.
I said the island. Yeah, it's like it's located in the Bermuda Triangle.
Okay, so we've reached the portion of the program, and I guess it
really
was
stat
all. I guess it really was all leading to this, where it's the 10th. The 10th spot is still open. We have not voted on Geno Smith. We have voted on Jourdan Love. If someone feels strong that the 10th person should be someone other than Geno Smith, like, now is the time to do it. And we take the votes, whether it's Jalen Hurts for you or Geno for me, if there's anyone else, knowing that there is one spot left. And unless we wanted to get crazy about changing the rules, we are going to put 10 people onto this island.
I'm good with that.
Okay, so we're putting one more person on this island either way, even though, I can feel that the room maybe isn't totally for Geno. I'm going to put Geno up for vote.
Well, we have to put him up for a vote. I mean, you guys have already struck down my guy.
Bo Nix.
Yeah, you
got to know.
struck down Bo Nix.
I do love the idea,
I made
though.
the case. If nothing else, he's helped to define this segment. I vote yes. Let's go one at a time to really raise
Greg really
the
wants
thing.
to soak it in.
I
Colleen-
vote no.
Colleen votes
On.
no. That's one
Yours
yes.
says on.
Vote no. Steve Wyche.
I'm going Geno, yes.
Oh, Steve goes yes on
Swing vote.
Geno.
Swing
So
vote.
That was a
Oh.
surprise
Swing
to
vote.
me.
Swing vote.
I thought
Oh,
that was
boy.
going to be a no. You might have gone back to Love or something.
The suspense.
Jordan
It's like,
Rodrigue. Play some music or something.
normally we'd be like, after the break, we'll find out.
Yeah. Yes. And it's a close-up cut with me just looking very tortured. So it is interesting how, even as the creator of Quarterback Island, all roads lead back to Gregg Rosenthal, because I am voting yes.
There it is.
Go!
Geno.
Let's go!
Hey, Geno, $6 million richer
Have
to
fun.
go on to Quarterback Island.
And the reason, Colleen, is I set the rule that injured players cannot be on the island.
Yeah.
I can't go back on my own rule. I'm
A
sorry.
rule is a rule, I guess, Greg.
For some people.
Some rules are rules.
When
Yeah.
historians go back and they look through the Quarterback Island initial class of 2025, Geno will be on there, just like
He'll be on there.
Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. There's no ranking of them. He did it. He made it into the top 10
Hey,
of
going-
NFL quarterbacks, like Eli Manning did like
Can
once
we
or
talk
twice
about
in
like
his
the
career.
rest of the quarterbacks
Yeah.
on the island, or are you just going to honk about Geno Smith?
No,
being here?
we're done talking about him for like
Okay.
All I know is next season, coming into the 2025-26 season, I'm putting Drake May in over Geno.
okay.
Putting
That-
Bryce on. I'm putting Bryce,
Bryce,
Young
there
on.
you
Jalen Hurts, I mean, come on now.
Jalen,
Let's see
come
what
on. Yeah,
happens in
Jalen.
this postseason. But
He
if
might
he's
have.
not on this island the entire year and ends up going
He
really
needs-
far in the
He's
playoffs,
the only NFC quarterback
the disrespect.
in the playoffs not on the island.
By a rule, because of the rule.
Well,
I would have loved
and to be
vote
fair,
for
he
him.
wasn't on all season before that. Now, if we
True.
were really reality show producers, you got to get him and Joe Burrow on just for the handsomeness. I think we got Burrow.
Well,
already
yeah, there's
there.
that.
And
Got to keep
Just-
the main thing the main thing.
just
Well, if we're doing that, Jimmy Garoppolo's,
Well, that's true.
victory lap.
Don't even blaspheme the island.
tune in 2025. It was fun all year. Thank you to Randy Chavez. Thank you to Eric Roberts behind the glass, and thank you, yes, to Chris Babona, making his last name debut on NFL Daily. He noted. I always just call him Chris because I wanted to make sure I said Babona right. That's just a name you don't want
It's
to.
kind of fun to say,
is.
Babona.
Babona. I'm sure your like classmates never made fun of you or brought that up at all. They're made.
What are you pointing at, Greg?
Let's play some music, Eric. Let's get out of here. We got another show. The final 10 members of Quarterback Island: Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Sam Darnold, our new entrant, Baker Mayfield,
I like that.
and yes, Geno, surprising me, snuck in there
You got it.
at the end.
You're not surprised.
I am, because when I made the list, I thought he'd get boxed out.
Well, we're so happy for all of the quarterbacks
Yes.
who are on the island. Best of luck to everyone who's been voted off or didn't make it at all.
I think this should be brought up during Hall of Fame induction arguments in 10, 15 years.
That's part of like an all-decade team?
Yes. How many times were you a top 10 defining quarterback in the league? It's one reason why I wouldn't have voted for Eli Manning, because it would have been like twice. But these guys earned it. Top 10 in the NFL. I'm happy. Aren't you happy to see your baby out in the wild? Quarterback Island.
Yes.
Let the arguments
I have
begin.
had a blast with Quarterback Island all season, even when I am psychologically manipulated by Gregg.
Stop it. Stop it. All right, we got to go get to...
And now we'll give you that hug.
we got to go to the fires now, unfortunately.
Yeah, you were kind of delaying that rescue.
I know. When we've decided on the 10 members of Quarterback Island 2024 forever, that's when you know football is back. See you Wednesday.